And this is actually why the West failed in everything in the Middle East, in Iraq, in Afghanistan, in Syria, in Lebanon, wherever the West tried to solve any problem, they failed. Because those who dealt with the problem are people who think like Westerners. And Western thinking was nothing when you come to the Middle East. In the Middle East, the rules are different, totally different. The question is, who will govern Gaza? Here I came with this plan, which also, I started with Judea and Samaria, yet it is applicable also in Gaza, to divide Gaza to 6, let's say, Emirates, based on the local families. No Hamas, no Abbas. Local families who will govern themselves in some kind of autonomies. One in the north part of the Gaza Strip, Talya, Beit Hanun. The second one is Gaza, the city. Mm-hmm. The third one is Dir el-Balach, which is to the south from the city. Another one in Khan Yunis, which is to the south of Dir el-Balach. Another one is Abbasan, which is to the east from Khan Yunis. And the last one, the sixth one, is in Rafah, adjacent to the border with Egypt. And these 6 Emirates, each and every one of them will operate by itself, vis-a-vis Israel or vis-a-vis the government, which will be in charge of security. This has to be worked on between Israel, Egypt, maybe Qatar, which will fund some things, maybe the United States and other countries who are interested in the fate of Gaza.
And you're saying that the fact that there are Islamic states or population and there are Arabs and tribes, you're saying that those are the reasons for not just attacking the Jews, but for being so barbaric and so extreme. Those are going to stay the same, even after we're going to, maybe we'll divide them, but they are going to stay.
Look,
Islamic.
there are good cases of tribalism in the Arab world, which is the Emirates in the Gulf. Okay. I'm talking about Kuwait, Qatar, and the 7 Emirates which are united in the United Arab Emirates. Dubai, Abu Dhabi, Ras Al Khaimah, Fujairah, Ajman, and more. And of course, Saudi Arabia. All these countries are flourishing not because of the oil. Dubai has no oil and no gas. They are flourishing financially and economically because they are stable. There are no revolutions in these countries. Mm-hmm. And the reason for the fact that they have no revolutions is because each and every one is one single tribe. One tribe.
Okay.
I mean, the country belongs to a tribe. They can have different foreign workers who come from Malaysia, who come from Bangladesh, or from America, investors, but they don't deal with politics. I'm talking about the citizens. Mm-hmm. The citizens of Kuwait are mainly a family named Al-Sabah, means the family of Sabah. Qatar is Al-Thani, family of Thani. Abu Dhabi, Al-Nahyan. Dubai, Al-Maktoum. Saudi Arabia, Al-Saud. Okay? So when you, in the Arab world, when you base a country on a family, you get a peaceful country, which deals with the world peacefully and make business. If they have oil like Abu Dhabi, they are rich because of the oil. If they don't have oil, like Dubai, so they are rich because of the business. Okay, stability is the name of the game. In Iraq, on the contrary, since you have 75 tribes and 10 religions and 4 ethnic groups and who knows how many sects, the Iraqi society is fragmented, and this is why the state was either a dictatorship under Saddam, or a mayhem as it is since Saddam was kicked out. The same thing in Syria, the same thing in Lebanon, same thing in Yemen, same thing in Libya. All these states, artificial states, are states which the society is comprised of many groups, which never became one group, because they don't get married with each other, because this is the tribal thinking. You marry your daughter only to your cousin or to her cousin. So, and this is actually the paradigm in the Middle East. If you base a state on one group, you get a flourishing state. If you base a state on a population which is fragmented along tribal lines, ethnic lines, religious and sectarian lines, you get a mayhem. And this is actually, in very short, introduction to understand the modern Middle East. And here, again, when we come to the Palestinian issue, we should take the winning paradigm rather than the losing one. The loser means the one which is based on families. If you give a family its own space and government over itself, they take responsibility.
You use Saudi Arabia for an example of a functioning and let's call it a good country, or I agree that the stability over there is good, but I'm not sure. I'd love you to share about them more information, but we can see that those are countries with stability, with more money or power, but still I'm not sure if they're listening to the rules of the West.
When you look at countries in the Middle East,
or if going to
the lens of Western culture, not even one of them is a good country. Dubai has no elections. Is it good? Is it dictatorship? No, they don't need elections because they have real leadership, not politicians. Real leadership who cares for everybody. Okay? So a country without elections can be a good country according to your...
The use of the word good is not suitable.
You cannot take the Western criteria by which countries are being judged, whether it's a good country or not, and implement those criteria on the Middle East. Because here the criteria are different totally.
The countries in Europe, for example, I imagine the population in Europe is peaceful. In Switzerland, or again, correct me if I'm wrong, but in Saudi Arabia, my question is, do you think that they're going to accept the fact that the Jews are living here and the population over there is going to accept it? In Saudi Arabia or in Gaza or in the West Bank?
Look, in Islam, there is what they call Salam Hudaybiyah, means a temporary peace, like which a Muslim can give to the infidel if he is too powerful and too dangerous to mess with. It also exists in the tribal culture, and it's called Hudna. Hudna is like a ceasefire on the way to solving the problem. So in both sides of the culture of the Middle East, the tribal culture and the Islamic culture, you do have a mechanism of temporary peace, which is given to an enemy who is too powerful, too dangerous, and invincible enemy. So if Israel is powerful, dangerous, and invincible, Israel can enjoy temporary peace. If Israel will be powerful, dangerous, invincible forever, Israel will be able to enjoy temporary peace forever.
Okay.
This is how it works in the Middle East. And I highly recommend to everyone who wants to deal with Middle Eastern issues, especially if he's a politician, and especially if he wants to bring some solutions to the Middle East, please first learn Arabic, learn the culture, learn the history, learn how people feel, think, learn about Islam. It is a very important component of the cultures of the Middle East. Learn about tribalism. You know, there is even a great book in English about this, written by a sociologist or anthropologist named Paul Saltzman. the title of the book is Culture and Conflict in the Middle East. This book is essential for whoever wants to do anything in the Middle East without mistakes. Because if you don't learn about the Middle East and you try to fix things in the Middle East, the chance that you are wrong when you are not familiar with the Middle Eastern culture is more or less 100% that you will fail. And this is actually why the West failed in everything in the Middle East, in Iraq, in Afghanistan, in Syria, in Lebanon, wherever the West tried to solve any problem, they failed. Because those who dealt with the problem are people who think like Westerners. And Western thinking was nothing when you come to the Middle East. In the Middle East, the rules are different, totally different. The priorities are different. The values are different. The way of thinking is different. Therefore, the way of behavior is something which is totally different compared to the Western culture, behavior, and everything. So this is why I highly recommend that everyone will learn about the Middle East before they come to fix things.
What do you think the world should do? Obviously, they're interfering a lot with the situation in here. They were sending a lot of peace forces to preserve the peace, for example, in Sinai or in Lebanon. What do you think about those actions and generally the world view and reaction to?
Usually actions which are taken by others work for a while, maybe, but the results might be even worse. Look, Saddam Hussein was a vicious, bloodthirsty, cruel dictator. No doubt, the man was a bad man. So the world came and kicked him out, and as a result, the number of people who were killed in Iraq after him was way much bigger than the number of people who died in Iraq as long as Saddam Hussein was there. So was he bad or what? Okay.
Yeah.
So removing Saddam should be accompanied by redesigning the state of Iraq. Leaving Iraq as it was under somebody else definitely was the problem. Iraq should have been divided to Emirates based on clans, on tribes. And in this way, Iraq possibly would have been as successful as the Emirates in the Gulf, because it would more or less the same structure, the same idea. The same thing in Syria, the same thing in Lebanon, the same thing in Libya, the same thing in Sudan. When you create units, political units, based on homogeneous society, you get usually a stable state which doesn't look for enemies, doesn't look for to mess with others, and they live their life. You know, there is a state named Somalia in Eastern Africa. A part of Somalia, 4 tribes, decided to leave Somalia, and they actually made a state named Somaliland. And Somaliland, of course, it's not recognized by the world. Only a few countries recognize it. But Somaliland is a very stable country. Why? These 4 tribes decided to work everything by talking to each other. Never to fight each other, never to raise a weapon against each other, never to be violent with each other.
But if I understand
Always
correctly, again, and I'm trying to summarize in my head what we're speaking about.
Until they solve any problem, if there is a problem. And this is why Somaliland is a flourishing country, although they are part of the desert of Somalia. Okay, so this is what I mean. Why, once you have a stability which is based on the culture of the people, and the tribalism is the culture of the people, you get a peaceful country.
Okay.
even though they don't have elections. Because in tribal societies, they don't need elections, because they have a real leadership, not politicians. And so they don't need elections. So is this a dictatorship? No, it's not a dictatorship. It is tribalism. And in this case, tribalism is a good thing. Although Americans don't like this word. But in the Middle East, this is the name of the game.